Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Gunners Town Pub. We are virtual. We're in the virtual pub tonight. It's me, Suburban Gooner, Chris, to my friends. You can call me whatever you want. I know that Dave Seeger normally does that and all manner of other things. So he's joining me tonight. Say hello, Dave.
Hello, everybody. Been a while.
What are you drinking, mate?
I came straight on after the match. I'm in an upstairs bedroom, so I haven't even been down to get a drink.
Oh, sorry. That is terrible. So you've walked into the virtual pub and you've done the equivalent of, I haven't got any virtual money. So
I have never been known to do that. I'm on a strict training regime anyway. No alcohol.
Yeah, really?
No.
Oh, right, okay. I was going to say you're going to be a barrel last in the virtual pub. As is Merv Dinnan. Merv, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I am drinking something called Halcyon, which is from Thornbridge. It's an IPA. I do have to say very quickly, I don't know if anybody from Camden Brewery listens, but Thornbridge are a beer sponsor to Sheffield Wednesday, and they have a special beer they brewed, a session ale called The Wednesday. And I would like to, once we return to the stadium, see Camden come up with The Arsenal in red in colour, a nicely brewed beer. Anyway. I've done my plug.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I like the sound of that. And joining us as well is our man Olaf from South Africa. Olaf, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Chris. Hi, Merv. Hi, Dave. Pleasure to be with you. I'm having I wasn't going to drink anything because I've still got to go drive somewhere. But after that game, I thought, stuff it. So I'm having a double gin and tonic.
We need something with a percentage, don't we? We need something with a percentage. And ladies and gents, boys and girls, mine is a pint of Sol I'm going for today. But I also have an emergency pint of rum and coke as well, because let's face it, after what we've just had to go through, football is mental, isn't it? Let's start with Olaf. Football is mental. Give us your hot take in the post-match pub. Oh, before you say anything, if you're listening to us live on Facebook or YouTube, then please put stuff in the comments. We will read them out. We will discuss them, debate them, and dissect them. But Olaf, hot take for this evening, please, or this afternoon.
I think that I was most probably the most shocked to have seen us where we were after the first 45 minutes. I think it was abysmal, and I think that's being generous. Especially the first half hour was atrocious, and that's why I've also changed my name today to No Big Match Temperament. I think that's my hot take. I think every game in the Premier League, especially where we are now, if we still want to claw our way up the table and to be in the European positions and not rest everything on the Europa League, my hot take is there was a complete and total lack of big match temperament of nearly every single player in the squad, other than one or two that I'll talk about a bit later. But that's my hot take. I think that they were just absolutely not up for it, awake and ready to get going from the moment the whistle blew.
It was just bizarre. It was bizarre and enraging. I think it was. I messaged my brother because we call this the family derby, because my brother and his one half of my family are West Ham fans, and so it's never nice. It's a bit like the North London derby for us. Obviously, that was big, but I described it to my brother as it was one of the most unprofessional performances at half time. I'd said this to him. One of the most unprofessional performances I've seen from an Arsenal team in a long, long time. We've seen the individual mistakes. We've seen the shooting ourselves in the foot. But for me, that was just terrible. So for me, my hot take was first half was one of the most unprofessional performances that I've seen, and the second half we actually looked electric. And that man Martin Odegaard, we'll talk about individual performances in a minute. But Dave, give us your hot take, please.
Well, just to see, we all want to have something different. My hot take is, and I've been trying to convince myself this isn't the case. I've been writing articles saying he can do it. Aubameyang, we can't play 4-2-3-1 with Aubameyang up front. End of. After today, he can't do it through the middle, so we put him out wide, and we can't play wide. So if we're going to have Aubameyang as our captain and our team, we have to play a different formation, because he can't play wide in a 3 and he can't play out front on his own. He shone in the 4-3-3. He shone with 3 at the back when we're playing breakaway football, when switching the play. When we set up to play for him, he shone. When he's part of a team in this formation, he can't hack it. And I don't want to say that, but he can't.
Yeah, it weren't great, was it? Like Aubameyang, probably when we get to the lowlights, a lot of us will probably be agreeing on that. But again, Marius David on Facebook has had some choice words saying Aubameyang was effing shocking, and I think it's hard to really disagree. Steve Brown on Facebook has also said, I hope the manager sees whether we're a better team without Xhaka. I'm not so sure about that, Steve, personally. I don't think Xhaka was amazing today, but there was a lot of questionable performances.
I'll tell you what is interesting. Sorry to interrupt you on that subject, though. Yeah. That's the very first time at the end of the game that Xhaka's been the one taken off and it's not Partey. That is a defining moment for me, that Partey stayed on for 90 minutes and Xhaka was taken off when we needed to get something out of the game. That's never happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Merv, let's just square off this circle then. Hot take from your perspective.
Hot take. It was like one of those lunchtime games where we joke about the fact that they set their alarms late. The first, I won't write off the whole of the first.
Clock's changed next week.
Yeah, I'll say half hour. The first half hour was just abysmal. I know there were changes in defence. Mari came in. I know Chambers, and there was a reason for bringing Callum Chambers in, but there seemed to be no understanding. We were getting caught. Kieran Tierney didn't look on his game. He seemed a bit more concerned, with the players around him. And I just think it seemed a case of too many changes. Having said that, at no stage, even when they scored the third, did I think we're going to get nothing out this game. I don't know why, blind optimism over the years. But I think that there were changes, and the kind of Aubameyang starting on the right and Saka on the left. And I wasn't quite sure. I think Arteta kind of tinkered a bit too much at the beginning. And it was left to the players pretty much to work it out for themselves in real time. Yeah,
it did feel like that. Do you know what was odd was, for me, starting off Aubameyang on that right-hand side, it sounded like it was just, it was a bit too much tinkering. And we switched within about 20 minutes. We'd switched back to Aubameyang on the left. Not that it made any difference. I think Aubameyang was pretty poor throughout, actually, and I didn't think he was that great. And I'll tell you what, let's get on to some. Let's talk about some highlights first, though, because I think we'll get to Aubameyang, because I think football is just mental. I don't even know how to digest this game, because sometimes I think football. I often try and break down football as quite a binary thing. It's either we played really, really well or we played absolutely terribly. And Dave, I'll go to you on this one. So, where do you even start to compartmentalise this as a performance? And let's start with your highlight, I guess.
Well, the highlight, it'd be easy to pick out Callum Chambers, and it was a highlight how well he played. And I had a conversation. Why is he in the team with someone? I said because he's a great crosser of the ball, and I said that in the first minute, and lo and behold, 2 goals. But the highlight for me was Martin Odegaard again. I mean, there's a guy from a tiny little pod called Clive. Do you know him? He tweeted during the day, like some small pod. I'm not sure what it's called, but he tweeted during the game that it's the whole team is looking to Odegaard, even the senior players. He is running that team, and my response was, let's hope he's willing to buy and can be convinced this is a project he wants to be part of, because even if we have the money, he's got to be convinced that this team next season he wants to be part of it. And I think we will find the money, but if we don't find the money, if we find the money and he's not convinced, then I would be devastated, because he is that good. He's a highlight. He's a highlight every week. It was Saka at the beginning of the season. It's now Odegaard. I can't believe we were even debating whether Odegaard or Smith Rowe should play in the middle. When you look at Odegaard the last 3 weeks, unbelievable.
Yeah, the man is absolutely
talent.
Absolutely bossing the show. Jonathan King on Facebook has just said Chambers and Odegaard superb today. I don't think you're going to get a single person on this virtual pub today that's going to disagree with you there. Both of them are absolutely brilliant. But Olaf, so let's have your highlight then.
I'm not going to disagree with Dave. I think like a metronome from very early on in the first half, I think Odegaard stood head and shoulders above everybody else. And whatever was happening creatively going forward, he was absolutely pivotal to starting it, and in certain cases linking up with other players and making it as threatening as it was. So short and sweet. I'm rubber stamping Mr. Seeger's comment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just love the way that like everything just flows through him, but also his ability in tight spaces to shift his weight. And what absolutely fascinated me today about Ødegaard is he could be surrounded by 3 players, and I'm now starting to feel so confident that he's not losing the ball. And in fact, I think he might have lost the ball like once in the entire game, or maybe twice. And when that happened, I was really surprised. He jinks his way through players, and he's got that vision and that pass. And he saw very, very quickly today that Chambers was getting a lot of joy. And I think it's interesting because in the Burnley game, I don't think Chambers overlapped that much. I think he very much tucked in. And, it was all about Burnley and their aerial threat and his defensive side of the game. But as soon as we went down to 3-0 and we realised that we had to attack, we saw a Cohen Chambers that I'm a fan of Chambers, I have not really seen that much of. Like, I was expecting the defensive solidity James side of it, Chambers, but actually, a performance like that going forward, he was awesome. Go on, Alaf.
Yeah, if I can just quickly, I was wondering again during the game why Real Sociedad raved about Ødegaard when he was on. I think it was Real Sociedad where he was on loan, and they put together this lovely video when he left and came and signed and loaned with us as an example, and I can absolutely see why. Because I thought, okay, maybe Sociedad were a pretty poor team, and therefore having a great player or a good player in their midst, like from Real Madrid, was something. But if I just look at it again today, it's like you can absolutely understand it when we've got some pretty talented players around the park, and yet he still stood head and shoulders above everybody else. And the other irony today was, I'm so pleased for Chambers that he's had an awesome game. But we ended up going more down the right than our historical attacking down the left with great gusto, and where a lot of our goals have come from. And that changed today, whether it was tactical or whether it just happened, also concerned me slightly, because I always would put $1 down saying we'll get something if we go down the left. But today we hardly even ventured down there in comparison to how much we were venturing.
Well, it's great to have that variety because teams will work us out. If we go to Tierney every time, we need that variety. And by the way, before you go to Merv, there's a descriptive word for what you were describing earlier, Chris, in the Arsenal dictionary about Ødegaard. It's called Cazorla-esque. It's called Cazorla-esque.
Oh.
That ability to jink out of situations where you think he's not going to retain the ball. It's called Cazorla-esque.
Yeah, and he's 22 years old. I mean, the hope is there. I mean, James Wood on Facebook has said, my brother's girlfriend's auntie's friend's dog said Ødegaard is staying, ... No, he ain't. Come on, James, get on the bus. Have some positive. Let's project our virtual pub positivity through to Arsenal. Make sure they get the deal done. Merv, let's talk man of the match briefly then, because I get the feeling we're sort of touching on Chambers and Ødegaard. So I get the feeling it's out of those two. Who would you select? Let's have a quick sort of round robin on who you'd select as your man of the match.
Okay, I would select Ødegaard because he made everything happen. Everything went through him, as we said, the more experienced players. Today was a day when I felt, I think I said in the hot take, they almost had to work it out for themselves. I'm sure Arteta was shouting from the touchline, but it's almost like they worked out pretty early that if you give it to Ødegaard, he will find the space, make the space. He'll pick a pass the opposition are not expecting. He'll instantly see a pass that the opposition hadn't covered. And so I think it was kind of down to him, but I feel there was a team ethic there to kind of drag us back into this game. It was a kind of game once West Ham got the third when some of the more established players could have just kind of dropped their heads and earned their pay from just kind of not conceding anymore. But I think it was the younger players led by Ødegaard who really, really kind of saw a way back.
I think I do think none of us should mention him, but I mean Lacazette was literally that's the best he's played this season. He was his hold up play, his turns, his fighting spirit when he lost the ball. It was like if you look Aubameyang there and Lacazette there, Aubameyang must be watching that and thinking he should be thinking I'm embarrassed here. I'm embarrassed. That's my mate, and he's just literally putting twice as much effort in as me, and it's really. How can you not, as a captain of Arsenal, feel embarrassed by your effort when you're seeing that much effort from Lacazette? Unbelievable.
Yeah, it just didn't. But it just didn't work with Aubameyang on the left, and as you said, Dave, like he can't play. We can't play this formation with him there. Not when we've got other players there.
Well, particularly when Smith Rowe and Pepe are both in great form. You know.
Yeah, and Pepe came on and looked good as well, actually. But I think, like I said, you're right. Like I said, had a really good game. Paul Hepker, Mr. Invincible of this parish, is chimed in on Facebook saying he deserves man of the match. Personally, Paul, I would say I'd have it between Chambers and Ødegaard because I think they influenced more than Lacazette. However, what I will say is that, you know, I think we're all in agreement that Lacazette was absolutely brilliant today. Like there were so many in that second half. There were so many good performances, but we've got to move on to some of the lowlights, lads, because let's be honest, we've drawn 3-3 against the West Ham team that we carved apart in the second half. So we can, in my head, the ending of a game, you draw a game 3-3. And you do just look at it on paper and you think, oh, you know, is that a good performance? Well, that's not great. You know, we probably need to be getting wins against teams like this if we've got any kind of ambition to finish into the Europa League spots. And if you just look at it on paper and you don't see the way that it played out, I mean, it wasn't great. So we're going to have to go through those low lights. I'll start with you, Olaf. Give us your low light then of the game.
I was looking at the whole game, and again, I think other than the one burst that he had towards the end, I thought that I'm talking about David Luiz in particular. I think that he didn't have a very good game at all. His defensive positioning wasn't particularly great. I think that the long balls that he was trying to reach people behind the defense of West Ham, they were not coming off. In fact, they were generally quite astray. In fact, in some instances, they were like a projectile going right almost over the stadium, as an example. I think that I think in general terms, I think that the defensive setup wasn't geared for the likes of a Lingard, as an example, with what he was capable of, and an Antonio with his ability to hold up the ball and bring their midfield into play, where they generally are quite ruthless as well, if they choose to be. So I would that's kind of where I would plant my flag in the sand and say, I think defensively, and by that I also mean central midfield defensively, or I'd put that as most probably we were caught offside, and I don't think we were in the right frame of mind. But then again, I don't think some of the guys in the defence were absolutely up to it, and that put us on the back foot instantaneously, as you know. So that's kind of where I put it.
Yeah, so for me, I thought there were some performances which I wasn't too impressed with. I didn't think Pablo Mari had a very good game today. I thought he looked hesitant at times. In the closing stages of the game, where Callum Chambers, Jesse Lingard nearly walked the ball into the goal, and Callum Chambers has just knocked it away, Pablo Mari was just absolutely done for that. I think he's one of the culprits for the second goal that they conceded. And Dave, let's just talk about that just for a second, because I don't know what your thoughts were, but when you watch the replays and see 7 Arsenal players not even looking at the ball, it's atrocious. It's like 11-year-old stuff, isn't it?
I don't know when it changed though, because you remember that time when Henry took that quick free kick and he had to ask the referee's permission to take it against Villa, and all the Villa players were up in arms. He didn't, and the referee said, "No, I gave you permission to take," when they weren't ready. When did that change? On the edge of the penalty area? Because I do think you're right, but I don't think many teams would have been expecting that. And I don't know, when did it change? Because he used to have to ask the referee's permission to take a quick free kick when it was in that sort of position. I don't know when it changed. But on the low light, it's a Mari thing, and Olaf's saying about the defence. The low light there is the team selection, because whilst I've been shouting about the need to rotate and the fact that we're so lucky, and Arteta's very lucky to have good players in form that he can rotate, in attack, wide areas, even in, central midfield. El Nenny's never letting us down, so he can rotate. I've now decided after today, he can't rotate the central defensive partnership. He's doing it too much. Mari's played well, but he played 4 or 5 games in a row with Holding or with Luiz. He's decided Luiz is his go-to man. That's his 7th or 8th game in a row. He should have stuck with Gabriel. In hindsight, I just think at this stage of the season, rotate everywhere else, but just play Gabriel, Luiz and Tierney, and literally, rotate everyone else. Those 3, I think you have to keep. And I think that's the low light. There was no need to rotate Gabriel when we got an international break. There was no need.
Dan, can I just ask you a quick question? are you a little bit worried the fact that Luiz is playing so much that he's going to end up getting another year deal?
No, he's already said he's going to give him another year deal.
Really?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, he's definitely staying next season if he wants it. Yeah, and I think he's going to, the potential to go into the coaching, because he's so valuable around the dressing room. But I think the year deal is if Luiz will accept that he's basically not going to be a starter, he'll get another deal, is what I understand. So he won't be a starter. But right now, Holding hasn't done a lot wrong, but he does seem to be going to David Luiz, and David Luiz has, since that terrible mistake 4 or 5 weeks ago, has played faultlessly. And I don't necessarily agree with Olaf. I thought he had a solid game today. I think Mari was weak, but none of us are giving any credit to how good West Ham were in the first half. It wasn't only us being bad; they were very, very good. They're well above us in the league for a reason. I would have loved Ben Rama at Arsenal. Jesse Lingard's a quality player. These are, and Antonio, you take in any, if he was fit all the time, you take him in your team. This is a good side. It's not. We were embarrassing, but they were very, very good. Let's not forget.
Yeah. Oh, Adam Kin on the Facebook has said, could Ødegaard be the new Bergkamp? Oh, that's high praise indeed, Adam. Let's not touch him with that brush just yet until we've got him signed, sealed, and delivered next season. But Merv, let's just finish off the lowlights that you can think of that we haven't already kind of talked about. So we've talked about Mari. I actually think that Luiz was okay as well. I thought he had a decent enough game. Any other lowlights from your perspective, Merv?
I think the guys have touched upon all of them. I think that I'm loath to say burnt Leno, but there have
I was just going to say that's the one I didn't
recently. Yeah, there are 2 or 3 times recently and I know he's had a changed defence in front of him. 2 or 3 times recently when I felt that he could have done better. I mean, he made a great save late on, but there have been 2 or 3 goals of late that I feel he should have stopped, and I don't know if he doesn't feel under pressure for his place. I don't know if it's the constant changing, evolving around him. The right back or the right defence changes every game and stuff. But he seemed unsure. I think that.
Well, they do say, Merv, that a keeper should never be beaten at his near post through his legs, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Alan Ruff never lived that down for people of our age.
True. I think
I literally have no idea who that is.
He was a Scotland goalkeeper. That happened against Wales. Went through his legs at the near post.
Yeah,
he was a laughing stock. He was a laughing stock.
I agree with Dave about the free kick thing. In that normally, the ref gets his aerosol out and starts marching 10 paces to put the wall. So I didn't see, when I saw it in replay a couple of times, I didn't see an obvious signal to take the free kick.
No.
Having said that, all somebody can do, like Luiz or Mari, stand in front of it, in which case he gets booked for blocking it. It's kind of, I don't know the laws completely, but it seems strange to me because there's such a fuss made of free kicks 20 yards or so out with a measuring.
Maybe someone watching can put it in the comments if they know the rules. I honestly don't.
My understanding is that the free kick is at the referee's discretion. In other words, he blows for it. That's kind of the default position, unless you make an arrangement, as you were saying, Dave, where
neither of those happened, did they?
No, exactly, and that's and I think that was the flabbergasting part is over and above. We were completely switched off. Then the issue was that actually allowed, and then the other big issue was the position that they took the free kick from wasn't at the point of where the foul is. And one of the pedantic things about the referees this year is that ball's not got to be moving, and B, it's got to be taken from a particular point where the infringement occurred in the first place.
Yeah.
It was.
It's a hard one. Do you know what? Can I ask you guys a question, actually? So last weekend, we got
Why are you here, Chris?
That's why I'm here. That's what I do occasionally. I do useful things. But last weekend, we got a penalty because Lacazette was fouled after the incident, right? When the ball was hooked off the line, Fabianski absolutely cleans him out. Can somebody, actually, I'll start with you, Merv, and then maybe the other guys can chip in. Can you tell me why that's not a penalty? Do you remember what I'm talking about? He's on mute. You're on mute, Merv.
Am I?
Yeah.
Hello.
You're back.
Can you
now.
hear me?
Go on. Yep.
I'll tell you what it is. I'm moving my phone because my AirPods keep trying to connect to the phone. I don't know is the short answer. I know last week I felt it was a penalty. I went back to something from kind of 1970, 71. The first time I learned that you can kick someone when the ball's not exactly in play and it's a penalty. But I thought that it was clearly a foul. I mean, there wasn't a big fuss made about it. And I don't know if it's different refereeing, different interpretation. I can't give you a specific reason why last week was given and something like that wasn't.
I think more interestingly, Lacker obviously thought he was fouled before he shot, though. True foul tugged him. Yeah. He decided not to go down, carried on, tried to dink it over Fabianski, which he did brilliantly, and obviously it was cleared off the line. But I think Lacazette was then looking at the referee saying, "Okay, I'll carry on play here, but you must have seen that." And that's what Lacazette was saying.
Yeah, I did actually. That was one incident where it's kind of, the other strikers we know from other teams not too far away from us would have just gone straight down. The moment there was the tug there, it'd have been flying.
But it's hard to know what to do for the best because Lacazette never goes down. Right? Pepe was on the pitch 20 minutes, went down like a sack of potatoes 3 times, every time looking for a penalty, and the referee's just laughing at him. So I don't, and I was laughing at Pepe. He may well have been fouled, but because he just goes down like that, I didn't. Whereas Lacazette soldiered on, tried to make the chance, and doesn't get the award when I thought it was a penalty. So, who'd be a referee?
Yeah, who'd be a referee? Olaf. So, some of the subs that he made. So, what did we have? We had Emil Smith-Rowe came on, and we had Pepe came on. I will say, I actually think Pepe did quite well. We were in the second half, and it's probably just in-game narrative, to be honest with you. We're basically losing 3-0. We pull one back before half-time, and Arteta said to them, well, you better go for this now, because you're all idiots, and you've buggered this up, so you better go for this. And that's exactly what we did. Do you think from a subs point of view, do you think each of the subs did well? So we had Emil Smith-Rowe, we had Pepe, and then I think a tacit admission from Arteta was that Aubameyang just didn't work because he brought on Martinelli, who let's be honest, he's had him in the cold. So what's your thinking there, Olaf?
Yeah, I was fully in support of Smith-Rowe coming on, as well as with Pepe. And I agree with Dave that he kept falling like a sack of potatoes. I would have left those two maybe for a couple of minutes later, and most probably have brought on Martinelli first and foremost for Aubameyang at the first change, and then put them on the back foot. So in other words, you still had the Xhaka and you still had the party playing and so on, and the rest of the midfield. But I think that so yes, I agree with the players he's brought on, but I most probably would have turned it around and brought on Martinelli instantaneously. In fact, I would have brought him on most probably at about the 55-minute mark latest already, because his speed, like Lingard was against us in the first half, could have caused quite a lot of damage had he been given more time on the pitch.
It's interesting because I thought that Giles, formerly of this Paris, tweeted straight after substitution that everyone's been talking about the possibility of Odegaard and Smith-Rowe playing together, but not in the positions they have been. There has been talk, obviously, when we're playing lesser teams, whether we could actually play 4-1-2-3 and actually play Partey sitting with Smith-Rowe and Odegaard. And I thought we were going to sort of see that, and we did for a while, and then obviously jinked it up again with Martinelli coming on. But that's interesting. I mean, I don't personally think he's going to be brave enough for that often, but chasing a game to have that, double creativity, certainly interesting. Not many teams who want to be dealing with Smith-Rowe and Odegaard on the edge of their penalty area, finding those, little neat passes.
Yeah, it's the way in which that's panned out, and with Smith-Rowe and Odegaard, I've just found fascinating. I'm with you, Dave. Like we've all been very excited with Smith-Rowe, and he's been brilliant. But you just see the way that Odegaard dictated the game in that second half. In the first half, he was barely able to get into it. I mean, I didn't even realise Aubameyang and Lacazette were even on the pitch up until Lacazette had scored his goal, because we just weren't anything from an offensive point of view. Sky put up a stat after about 15 minutes, which showed like passes in the final third, and it was like
0.
West Ham 23, Arsenal 0. I mean, that was just unacceptable. But ultimately, we've come away with a draw. And just as we sort of start to round off the pod today, Merv, so do you see that as a point gained, points lost, opportunity missed? Where do you sort of stand now, we've had what 40 odd minutes since the game's finished?
God. Well, it's one of those. It's kind of, at kickoff for me, it's 2 points dropped, but after 30 minutes, it's a point gained. I think that I wouldn't say I've given up on the league, but I don't expect us to finish, certainly not the top four, and I don't think the top 5 or 6. So it's the Europa League. I guess is their best chance. But so I think it's one of those games where at the end of it, I felt quite happy because we got the 3rd goal back. A bit annoyed we didn't then get a 4th in the last 2 or 3 minutes. But clearly from at the kickoff, I expected nothing less than a win. So it's kind of, it's one of those. It started off as, I suppose, dropped and then gained. But it had you told me before kickoff, it's going to be an exciting game, a draw, it's going to go both ways, then, 3 days after a European game, a tough European game, I might have said okay.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'd rather come back from 3-0 down to draw 3-3 than to go 3-0 up and end up with a point at the end. I mean, West Ham fans will be pretty sick tonight. But Dave, where do you stand on it?
Well, let's be proud. I mean, obviously, I'm disappointed we didn't win today, and I thought we were going to win before the game. And as Merv said, in the position we were in, you take it. But let's take a step back. Before the North London derby and Benfica, it was the biggest week ever, and then it was the biggest week ever when we were playing the next round. If you'd said to me, home against Spurs, away against West Ham, home against Liverpool, 7 points, I would have taken it. Yeah. So we've got a point away from home. We've won at home. So we have to beat Liverpool next week. And then 7 points from 3 teams, all of whom be better than us all season, all above us. You'd have to say that's a good haul. 7 from 9 against 3 teams above us. And then we move up. You'd take it. But yes, you have to feel disappointed.
Yeah, I think from my perspective,
but half time you'd bite your hand off for a point.
Do you know what? Just on that, Dave. So in my head, like for me, I'm a bit like Merv in that. For me, the league season is pretty much done.
I'm not in that camp.
See, I think it is. I think it's done. And I went for a walk earlier, and the wife said, "So what does it mean if they win today?" And I was like, "Well, they'll be 10th." It seems like every week I get asked the question by the wife. So what happens if they win today, or if they lose or they draw? And I say, well, if they win, they'll finish. They'll be 10th at the end of the day. If they draw, they'll be 10th. If they lose, they'll be 10th. So
yeah, but Chris, had we won those 3 games, and we haven't now, but if we'd won those 2 and we beat Liverpool, I reckon we would be 8th, and our next 2 games against the bottom 3, Fulham and Sheffield United. So if we'd won 3 and we were 8th with 2 games against the bottom 3 to play, then would you still say the league season's over? I don't know.
I mean, for me, more than anything else, it's about momentum. Like, you don't want to go into European games on the back of a losing streak or, not winning games. So that's why I'm looking at the league and thinking that's why I want to pick up wins. I'm not really looking at the table for we're going to qualify for Europe. I'm just thinking, let's just keep that momentum. So Merv, just as we sort of Olaf, just as we round up then tonight, where are you standing in terms of that, in terms of our league campaign so far, in terms of today, whether that was a point lost or a point gained or 3 lost?
I'm going to go with the rest of the gentlemen and say it's 2 points lost, or in other words, I was expecting 3. But I think that if you see it in context of Thursday, where we ended up losing, but we were still through to the quarterfinals, and then of course the Spurs win. I suppose we can't really complain, but I think it was the reality check of that first half an hour. I mean, I was sitting here all relaxed. I had family over earlier for coffee and cake, and I hadn't seen, my mom in such a long time and whatever. And I was like really upbeat, but within that half an hour, I was like incredibly dejected to the point of going, do I actually WhatsApp everyone and go, I'm not feeling well and didn't want to come and have this discussion. So I'm going to go with the...
Crossed all our mind.
I'm gonna go with it's a point game, although it should never ever have been like that. And again, I think that we don't have enough time, but I do believe that we, as a collective, could have had a very serious discussion around team selection and tactics, and that is purely on the shoulders of the manager and his support staff. Because we always talk about the players, but we don't ever talk about that enough, I think, sometimes here, even within the virtual pub. So, but that could be for another day.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to round that one up then, I think he did get a few things wrong, but I think actually, so Chambers in at right back, that's the, you know, that tactically, that absolutely worked a treat. Aubameyang on the left didn't work. I didn't think Thomas Partey had a particularly great game. I think Kieran Tierney was subdued. I thought Pablo Mari was quite poor, and as Dave, you mentioned earlier, you know, he's got to stop chopping and changing all of the centre halves because it's not working, all of this rotation. But I think it was a mentality from a tactical point of view. I could kind of get it, apart from, you know, the Aubameyang thing, we've seen it before, but it doesn't work. But from a tactical point of view, I think it was just mentality, and that comes back on the manager more than, you know, his lineup and stuff like that. So, you know, it's we are where we are. We're a mid-table team. We've finished through it all. I can't wait for this season to get in the bin.
Have I got time to ask a question back of everyone then, on that mentality point?
Go for it.
Well, I know it's an old thing. We rehash it and we talk about it again and again. But, you know, when you've had the likes of Adams and Vieira and Fabregas leading your team, it does make a difference. So is it time to make a massive decision if you're Arteta? Because when you're not starting a game well, and when the chips are down, wait. You don't have to wait till half time to get into your manager to tell you. There needs to be someone who's going to step up and take the game by the scruff of the neck. And Odegaard is that player right now. We can't make him captain. But is there a time to say, okay, look, Kieran, it's yours. You know, you're the best player we've got. You play every game. You're the one who never stops running, or someone. You know, like when Oba didn't play the other day, he gave it to Lacazette. Lacazette never stops running, even if he has a bad game. At least if you have a bad game, you want to know that somebody's going to never stop putting in 100%. And Aubameyang, much as he's a mercurial talent when he wants to be, he just isn't the player who should be a captain of our club.
Yeah,
it's not that type of footballer.
No, it was a classic. You know, back in the day when Thierry Henry was made captain, basically just because he's the goal scoring talisman. Thierry Henry wasn't an amazing captain. Let's be honest. He was just giving it up by Wenger. It sounds very, very similar. Murph, where do you stand from that perspective, on a mentality leadership perspective?
I'm not a great fan of strikers as captains, because great strikers have to be very selfish.
Or keepers as captains as well. Doesn't make sense.
You need somebody on the pitch who can lead by example, who's vocal, who shouts, kind of fist waving, and I don't think. I mean, Aubameyang isn't that kind of player. I assume, you know, it was like, we'll give it to the next most senior player. I think,
and we wanted to sign a new deal.
And we wanted to sign a new deal, and that's why we can't take him off until the 85th minute, because it's probably in his contract or something. I don't know. But I don't know we have the player there yet who could do that. I mean, I was very hopeful of Partey, but he hasn't been there long. Xhaka isn't the shouter. Luiz can lead, but he makes mistakes as well.
Needs to be a long-term appointment. Needs to be a long-term appointment.
So I agree with Tierney. Just the other night, after the Spurs one, the video clip was going viral on Twitter about, you know, come on guys, we've got to fucking score, and it's kind of, that's what you need. And so he's the one displaying it at the moment. I'm not sure that someone's just said that it's been a curse in recent seasons. Don't give it to Tierney.
Don't give it to KT.
At the moment, I mean, it's difficult to sign somebody and then make them captain. I mean, if they're going to make a big signing in the summer, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, again, creative players aren't great captains either, because sometimes although I think Odegaard's different to another MO, for example, he in that he does chase back, he rolls up his sleeves, he will fight. I think you just need somebody who is talismanic physically as well as verbally.
Gabriel, I suppose, is the other candidate.
He could certainly be. Sorry, Olaf, just close us off then, just with your thoughts on the mentality side before we wrap up.
The strange thing is that if you look at someone, and again, this is I'm not trying to be controversial, but if you look at someone like Xhaka as an example, Forget the football skills. But if you look at the way he talks when he gets interviewed, if you look at the way for the Swiss national team, he is the kind of on the field leader that you want and that you need. The one who would most probably, after the first goal, would have called everybody into a huddle and sort of shat all over them and said, "Hang on, what the hell are we doing?" as an example, or at least at 2-0 down. He's got that from that Germanic and kind of perspective. But that goose is now cooked, so it's not a discussion. But we don't really have anybody else in the team that is incredibly strong and incredibly vocal, as an example, as Dave and Merv and you, Chris, were pointing out. That would be a natural thing. There's also the ego involved. If you're going to take the captaincy away from Aubameyang, what does that do, and what does it say about you as a club? And what is correct. And then the next, but then you're going to have to live with, if we take it away, then it's also the issue of, then I'm going to ask for a transfer, or I'm going, whatever the case is, or you need to sell me because my ego can't be arriving in these multicolored Lamborghinis, but now all of a sudden you're taking the captaincy away from me, whereas you were producing special videos for me literally 6-8 months ago. So that's the difficulty as well. I think that is over and above somebody as strong as Mikel and well-spoken. I think that there is a need, as everybody's pointed out, for a strong captain. And the issue that we have at the moment is that it's a double-edged sword. You've got to take it away from someone who potentially believes he has the right to it right now because of the importance he has to the team. And then the person that you would potentially replace him with, Kieran Tierney, being as young as he is, you would go, well, what the hell does that guy know? He's lucky he's not playing it.
He might be 23, but he's been playing top-flight football for 5 years.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Let's not forget that Tony Adams as well was captain at 18, 19? So
18, yeah.
It's also, without sounding Wenger-esque, it is a team responsibility. I always remember an interview with Thierry Henry when they were talking about how he kind of developed, because at the beginning he didn't seem the player he ended up. And he said, I always know what I was supposed to do because I had Lee Dixon shouting at me for 90 minutes, telling me where I was supposed to be and what I was doing wrong. And we don't have that kind of collective responsibility because a lot of the players are young, a lot haven't played together, the team rotates. It's kind of, until we have the unit, which we're kind of building in midfield and attack, I suppose. So we've got a unit with everybody there. And we need those couple of old heads who can do that and shout at the others and kind of constantly pick them up.
Partey may be that player. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I've seen enough to know how good he is, but we've not seen it consistently. He didn't have pre-season with us. He's been injured. I know we keep making excuses, but I watched him at Atletico Madrid. He's a class act, So it could be him, Who knows? It
could actually be. He is a good player, and I take your point there, Dave. I remember one thing that always struck in my head, which is what you used to say about Aaron Ramsey, is he needs a run of games before he really hits form. I think that's the same for most footballers, and Thomas Partey just hasn't had that. And knowing our luck, hopefully he'll get that run of games now. He seems to have shaken off any kind of his fitness issues. So let's keep our fingers crossed. But hey, look, ultimately, lads, we've come away from the London Stadium, that absolutely soulless bowl of a stadium with a point, and we keep going. We keep, it's not a defeat. We're into the next round against Slavia Prague in the Europa League. That suddenly seems to have opened up, and I don't know about you guys, but I certainly fancy my chances. I fancy our chances there. It's been.
Assuming we don't boycott the game, of course.
Well, yeah, I think that.
They might even be kicked out in the next couple of days because UEFA seriously does have to take a stand.
It will never happen.
It won't.
Never.
It won't. But
more chance of Nicholas Bender's shorts being fined again than Slavia Prague being knocked out of the FA Cup. I mean,
and on that fabulous note, I think we'll call time on today's proceedings. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me in the virtual pub, David.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, mate.
Olaf, good to see you as always, sir.
Yep, thank you. And we have a bank holiday tomorrow, so good luck and the start of your week tomorrow.
Every day's a bank holiday at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And Merv, have a good one. Have you and your fabulous orange cushions in the background. Hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers,
and
guys.
You guys too. Thanks
And
for
we
having
will
me on.
see you. And we will see you next time on the post-match Pubcast after an international break. Ladies all, up the Arsenal.